go, and that scene was actually one of the first ones that we actually filmed. And we took a break from so long. Aaron moved away, and when he came back, we decided to reattach it, and it was the day before Clerks 2 came out. And so we watched Clerks the night before, refilmed a new version of the scene, which is much tighter, luckily, and after we were done filming, went out and watched Clerks 2 and just had a grand old time watching it. So
nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
I will ask you then, what's your history with Clerks then? The first movie and this movie. Obviously, you saw it with Aaron, but what's your history with this movie and the Views universe in general?
This movie didn't come out until I was after I graduated from high school. So I missed it the first year it came out. Up here in Maine, we usually don't get things right off the bat, and this being an independent flick, I think it took a year or two to get up to us. But I saw it my sophomore year in college and just fell in love with it.
You're good.
What is going on?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
I just fell in love with it immediately. It was just all the different aspects of it, and I myself, being who I am, identified very deeply with Dante, in that it was just like life keeps throwing me all these curveballs and blaming and whining, and it was funny to see myself up on the screen and to be able to go, wow, I'm not bad, huh? So it was a life-opening experience for me.
That is funny. That is really funny. I like that. So that is very cool. I have to ask this question because I'll be on your show later on in this year.
Yes.
Where did the idea of BarenakedABCs come from? It's my favorite band, so I'm just curious.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the show Alphabetical.
I'm well aware of it because I'm Star Wars Minute guys.
Yes. I actually got into listening to Star Wars Minute and then kept hearing them reference the fact that they used to do Alphabetical. And Beatles are my number one band. And so I listened to that whole series front to end, and then I was like, okay, well, what about my number 2 band? And so I started listening to Weird Al, the Weird Alphabet.
Right.
And I was like, this is great, but I have more time on my hands. All right, what's my number 3 band? Okay, well, number 2 and number 3 together right there mixed are Barenaked Ladies. And there was no podcast out there. And for about a half a year, I was just like, this is insane. Like, someone's going to start this sooner or later. And no one did. And I'm like, you know what? It can't be that hard to do this. I'm going to do it. And then spent the next 6 months realizing exactly how hard it is to set up a podcast. But I've enjoyed every moment of it since. And it's great because as a person that came into BNL with all of their albums, I started to realize all the non-canonical albums that were out there, so all the pre-tapes that had been made and all of these songs that were out there that were never put on the albums, and I was like, it was an amazing project to just take over and do. So,
well, I will say right now, you won me over on that one because I am one of those people that randomly would search on like the podcast and like, let's see if anyone did anything for this, and I type in Barenaked Ladies and I found BarenakedABCs. I was like, oh, finally someone did something! Yay! Finally did something! Because I have so many things already on my plate. There's no way I can start a show like that. I have way too many things on my plate, so I'm very happy to someone else pick up the mantle.
It's 270 songs. I didn't realize that when I first started out with it.
Well, and of course you're covering the kids albums and the kids album in there too, which I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're doing that. I'm sorry.
So are some of my castmates. So.
Yeah. So all right. Well, on that note, why don't you plug your show and then we'll get out of here.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys very much for having me on. If you would like to come and listen to ours or listen to it when Blake comes on to our show, which is in about a month from now, I think at this point, recording-wise, you can come over to BarenakedABCs. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and all the usual platforms. And we're also, if you want to find us on Facebook, we're at Facebook /BNL Podcast. And we couldn't put Barenaked Ladies on that one. Facebook cuts off the Bare Naked piece. So we had to go with BNL Podcast.
Fair enough. Well, I'll get our plugs out of the way here. We are part of the Filling the Void Podcast Network. And you can hear us all over the place on Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 a.m. Central Time. And we are on Apple Podcasts. We are on iHeartRadio. We are now also on Spotify. We are everywhere you can hear podcasts. It is a big deal. You can also hear me on the Blake and Sal Show every single Friday. And every other Friday on No Days But Today, a Rent retrospective with my wife talking about the movie Rent. So that is everything I'm up to. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Blake.
I'm Kyle.
Have a good day, everybody.
I left the coffee pot out again, didn't I?
Snorting, smoking weed, doing coke, drinking beers, rolling fatties, smoking blunts. Who smokes the blunts? We smoke the blunts, rolling blunts and smoking.